So this is QFloors Basic Training Seminar as a webinar. Session 1. We'll hold 2 more sessions for this in the next coming weeks. You'll need to register for those other 2 webinars separately. Go back to QFloors.com, log in with your username and password there, and go to the webinar registration and register for the other 2 sessions of this basic training seminar. Registering just for this first one did not register you for the other 2. In the future, we've got it set up. We're registering for the first in a sequence of webinars, registers you for the others as well. First thing that we want to look at is some things on our website. Just getting started with QFloors. Well, type in the right password, it works better. This quick start manual is where we want to look at in particular. And this getting started checklist. Some of you have had QFloors for a while, others newer than others, and so this mainly applies to newer customers just getting the software set up for the first time. Follow this checklist in the order that it's listed here. Of course, call us with questions, schedule phone appointments, but this will step you through getting the software off the ground, getting it running, and this general ledger conversion section here, step number 7. This step 7 is really just a rough outline of the overall procedures, this general ledger conversion procedures, which is a section near the back of this manual. One of the important ones is selecting a cutoff date, which is part of that general ledger conversion. And what that means is you're going to decide on a date, and that's the last day that you will use your existing systems, whether it's some software, whether it's paper and spreadsheets, things like that. That's the last day that that system or set of systems helps you manage and account for your business. And then the following day, QFloors would start and manage things and do the accounting. So hypothetically, someone could choose a December 31st cutoff date. You would need to use your existing systems up through the end of that date, and then do all of these other steps with that date in mind, in anticipation of that date coming. The date does not have to be an end of a month or end of a quarter. It can be any day of the week, any day of the month. This obtaining your B2B account settings, that's really important to get that going right off the bat. It takes some of these vendors to about 5 to 7 days sometimes to get your B2B account set up and generate files for you to download. And you need that before you can really start into step number 6 down here. Get the software installed. We don't use Beyond Remote anymore. We need to change this manual. Get your employees and installers set up, and then dive into these setups. So we're going to actually go through the setups and how to do the setups and how to use the program on a basic level. We'll cover some intermediate level things here and there throughout this hour-and-a-half session, but it's mostly going to be just on a basic level. What are the basic things I need to know about the software to use it day to day, to get it set up and use it? So diving into QFloors. And Document Manager opens if you have that software. First, we'll talk about just the layout of the software. There are 6 screens, 6 buttons at the top, and using those, you'll manage your business day to day. There are other windows and reports that will open up here and there, but for the most part, those 6 screens are where you'll do the bulk of your day-to-day management. Each screen is laid out mostly the same way. On the left-hand side is your list of bills or list of inventory or list of sales. Clicking on an item in the list shows you the details of that transaction on the right. So this is your detail window. And then down at the bottom left is your search window. And changing something in the search window changes your list. Another thing that changes your list is locations. So some more details about the list itself. Let's change our search to all dates, get some more data in there. The various columns, and you can make columns wider or narrower, just like other programs. Move the mouse in between the column headings and click and drag, or you can double click and it'll go as narrow or as wide as it needs to go for that column. You can click a column heading to sort it numerically or reverse numerically or alphabetically, and date-wise and numerical. You can also add columns into the list. This is a somewhat newer feature. Holding down the Shift key on your keyboard while you click one of the headings that's already there. Don't click in between. You need to click one of the headings. So if I want to insert a column between these two, I'm going to click this one because it will insert to the left. Hold the Shift key, click that heading, and then I get this menu of things that are available to add. Anything with a check mark is already somewhere in the list. And maybe I want to add the ship to last name. That's this one right here. And I don't want that centered, that's text, so I'm going to put that on the left edge alignment of the column and click OK. To take a column out, it doesn't matter where you click. We can hold the Shift key and click way over here and uncheck that to remove that column. Scroll bars left and right to see more columns, up and down. You can also grab this divider in between. See how the mouse arrow changes here. Click that and drag to the left or to the right and see more of the list or more of the detail side, either way, whichever way you drag it, of course. There are tabs at the top of each list in each screen, and when you click a tab, it changes the list. We'll talk as we go along about why are certain things in certain lists and not in other lists, and what do those mean. Little arrows to go see more lists. Notice that when I click one of these tabs, the status down in the search window changes to match. There are more items in the status field here than there are tabs. The tabs are for the most commonly used invoice lists or product lists, whichever screen you're in. Statements, a lot of different things. Project management. Some of these are more intermediate level advanced things, or just different reports, just mainly just different sales reports in this particular window. Let's see. Clicking on an item shows you the details. This is where you can modify an existing transaction, or click new and fill in the blanks and save it, and then that new transaction will show up in one of the tabs on the left. You do not have to be in a particular tab. I can be over here under receivables to create a new proposal invoice. The receivables tab just shows me the invoices that are currently in a receivable status. Doesn't prevent me from creating a new sale. Finding things. Down in your search field here, if you type letter B and press the Enter key, you have to press Enter to activate the search. And then you see, as long as you're in the right tab, as long as you're in the right location, then you see everything that applies. The more you type, press Enter, the narrower the list becomes. Backspace, Enter. Change your date range. different options there. You want to be careful if you had the software for a long time, you do all dates, it could take a long time to generate the list. Another feature for finding things is holding down the control key and pressing the letter F as in find on your keyboard, and this will work in any of the in any of the screens. Find items in current list. So it's only this little window here will only search through what you've already got listed in the screen on the left hand side. Invoice header is going to search the details up in here. Invoice lines. So if we find something we can work with here. So let's look for the word bedrooms, or I'm going to search invoice lines, and we can narrow it down, even just search the comments on the lines and search for the word bed and press enter, and it found 2 different invoices. Found it there, found it there. Then get back to your main list by clicking on one of the tabs or changing your status at the bottom. Again, that works in any of the screens. One thing I want to point out in the checkbook screen, jumping ahead here, Control F, and you're searching for a dollar amount. A check is a negative amount. So if you search for a dollar amount, then you need to type negative numbers. Unless you're looking for a deposit, then it would be a positive number. Let's see. On the invoice screen, click the JC button up here at the top. That's job costs. That's this purple section over on the right that opens up. And there you see commissions and shipping and overhead cost and materials and labor and your profit margin. Now that's the kind of sale we want right there, right? Let's see, printing. There's always a print button at the top of the detail, and for your list, you can hold down the shift key on your keyboard and click print to export the content of the list to a spreadsheet file. And I think that's it for getting around in the program. Oh, sorry, one more. There's this quick view bar across the bottom here. You can click the Q button to close that or refresh it. It does not automatically refresh its numbers minute by minute throughout the day. If you close the software and reopen it, or just click this Q button and click it again to refresh the numbers. Okay. In the setup menu, we're going to cover each of these one by one, and as we go, we'll point out a little bit about how each one of these affects the rest of the program, or how the data in the setup menu is used in the rest of the program. Company information, that's pretty straightforward. What's your company and where are you located, and which country are you in? And yes, California is a separate country all by itself. I'm just kidding. Special, not really a tax, there's an assessment there that we had to make a new setup here. So, and if you're in California and you know about this CARE assessment, that's what this is for here. That one's pretty straightforward. Locations and sales tax. This can be used in a number of different ways right now. Here in another month or so, we're releasing an update to QFloors version 6.1, where we have actually broken this screen apart into 3 separate screens, where you can set up locations, and you can set up profit centers, and you can set up sales tax. 3 different setup windows. Right now, it's all done in one place. You have your brick and mortar locations, your physical stores, warehouse, things like that. Set up a location for each of those. You can further use it. Maybe you only have one location, but you want to set up for different types of sales, commercial versus builder versus retail. We've seen that. Some states have different tax options or tax rules, selling different types of materials. Maybe if you install carpet, it's taxed differently from installing other types of flooring. Some states have that. Most don't, but some do. So you would need to set up different locations with different tax options. So you would click on a location number here. If you're brand new with the software, you'd click on the first one and just change the name and press enter and enter your address and details and what's your tax rate. Very few states, I don't even remember which states use this local limit. What's the local tax rate, and is there a limit on that local rate? Sometimes there's a local rate but no limit. Talk with your accountant, your tax attorney, to determine what are your actual tax laws, sales tax laws for your area. And then these tax options. About 30 or 33 states, I don't remember, have this use tax law. And selecting that option will cause QFloors to tax a sale differently if there's labor on it. If we look at this sale here, it's created in that, let me go back to the locations. The software uses the first two letters of each location name as a little tag or indicator on every transaction, which location is it in. So I can tell looking at this here that this was created in that main store location. Up at the top here, it shows me which location I selected to work in right now. So looking at this particular sale, we see some materials, we see some labor, and it shows this miscellaneous text down here and some dollar amount, but our cost that we're paying out is less than that. So here's our actual tax. This is the use tax, and what this does is when there's labor on the sale included in our contract, and here's our labor cost and here's our materials cost. Well, the use tax mode taxes the materials, but not to the customer. In a use tax situation, there's no tax to the customer whatsoever, and you usually cannot imply in any way to the customer that there's tax anywhere on the ticket, because there shouldn't be. So the software is taxing this $384 at this 7% tax rate to come up with the $26.88 use tax. It's something you have to pay out of pocket as the flooring dealer. If we're to take the labor off of this, no labor, then this changes to sales tax, and we're collecting $61 from the customer and paying $61 to the state. Just like going down to the store and buying a package of pencils or something, you're going to pay tax. I'm going to click on that invoice and ask, do we want to save that change? No. So where does the $52 come from, right? If we're paying $26 out of pocket tax costs based on what it costs us to buy the materials, and we're charging the customer $52, but there's no tax anywhere in this sale, well, what is that about? That's this miscellaneous charge. Right now in this demo, I have it set up at a 4% miscellaneous rate. You do not want to put that anywhere near your tax rate. If I've got a 6.35% tax rate here, then I could set this at 6 would be the absolute highest I think that I would go. I'd probably put it at 5 maybe at the most, but you don't want it to look like you charge a customer tax. If you did have a sales tax audit and you have that miscellaneous rate set the same as your tax rate, the state could say that you actually charged tax and tried to get away from it. So what's it for? Well, this is an out-of-pocket cost. It's $26.88. So is the labor of $360 that we're paying to the installer, and the material cost of $384, and some freight, estimated freight, and some estimated overhead. And so we have all these costs, and so somehow in our pricing we're charging enough to come up with a good, healthy profit margin down here at the bottom, 39.17%. Well, this out-of-pocket cost here, we either need to do one of two things. Increase our prices to make sure we're covering that out-of-pocket cost, or we can charge this miscellaneous thing on the invoice. Some people do both, but basically it's just a way to recoup that tax cost. Now again, you really shouldn't be telling your customer that is tax or that includes tax, because it really doesn't. But it's a way for you to recoup it if you want to try that, if you want to do that. We know of a lot of our users that do use that miscellaneous charge without any hassles or problems. Some of our customers prefer to avoid it altogether and just put in a zero rate. Make sure you press enter and then save it. This middle tax option, sales tax on materials not labor, then it's on this particular sale, it would have taxed the customer at the tax rate on the $872, but this $440 labor would not have been taxed at all. And then this other option, sales tax on materials and labor, there's only a few states that have this option that we're aware of. And basically it's just going to tax the entire sale altogether, materials, labor, everything, and charge the customer the tax. You can see here where we've got different tax options set up for different sales, or I'm sorry, for different locations, different tax rates. Okay, some of you may have wondered, why does that tax setup window show a 6.35% tax rate and this shows a 7% tax here? This tax is coming from a table. If we look at a different sale, let's see where we can find one here. Here's one where the tax is coming from the location, MA, that main store location, 6.35%. It was this one. So another part of tax setup, and this only applies to a few states, under Preferences, Sales Tax Table. Filed in Preferences and Sales Tax Table. This is intended for those states where you have to collect tax based on the county and or city where the materials are being delivered or installed. And here you set up your city name and your city tax rate if that applies. You could leave that at 0 if there's no city rate. County name, county rate. State name, state rate. And so when you have this set up like this, and then you create a sale, and you get into the city field on the invoice, and you can make a selection. Here I've got 2 of this particular city set up with different zip codes. Select one, press enter, and then we can phone number, and is this going to, pressing enter, when it's about to move from the email address box over to this side, it asks you want to just copy it all over. We can say yes or no. This one here, the city on the ship to side, is the one that really determines the tax. As I mentioned earlier, that setup window is for destination-based taxes, where you have to charge or collect use tax based on the tax rate in the city and or county where it's being installed or delivered. So this is the one, the delivery side. This is what really determines the tax on this particular sale when you are using this particular setup. Now, it is possible to use this just to have a list of cities and counties and state, and your state. You would want to call and have a discussion with us about that and how to set that up. But otherwise, go to our website, log in, go to Application Notes, and in this Data Importing and Technical Items section, CSV City Sales Tables. Go there for more information. Some states we actually have a file that you can download and use to populate and import into this. You can import data into this to set up those cities and counties and rates. But you've got to be careful with that. We are not responsible for making sure the rates are correct. We did have some customers that provided it to us, or we took some data and made a spreadsheet for you to import, but rates change all the time. So make sure you get the right rates in there. So that's locations and sales tax. This next one, employee subs. Clicking here is really the same as clicking over here on this button at the top right. Employees and subcontractors. In here is where you set up all of your employees and all your installers. To create a new one, you click the new button, fill in the blanks. Address and so forth. This type field here is not to define the person's position or role in the company. It's mainly to tell the software where should this name be displayed. If we select sales, then the name shows up on an invoice in the list of salespeople. If we select management, it shows up on an invoice when you're taking a payment as you know, this person is allowed to post their name and as having accepted a payment. Installer, the name shows up in this list here on an invoice line. The payments, sales, management, and office all show up in here. Table, we'll come to this when we talk about commissions. Status, this one you need to select also. So the two main selections so far have really been type and status. Is this an employee or a contractor? And then you want to select a state. Let's say that I'm setting up an installer and it's a contractor. So I want all of these payroll items exempted except for the gross line. I don't want to withhold any taxes. So as soon as I select a state and press enter, it exempts all of these items for you. So it's that combination of type, status, and state that will set these exempted or not. If we switch this back to employee and reselect our state, well, that didn't work. It should have undone it for me. There we go. Do a different state. Then they're not exempt. Save your changes. And then for employees, you need to give them access. You click the access button at the top. There are buttons on the right-hand side to give someone default access to certain things based on their actual role in the company. But you can customize it from there. You can uncheck or check various things to give them access or prevent them from accessing various things. You click that button again and it resets it to its defaults. Clicking down the list gives more and more access. Master Plus gives access to everything. Someone needs to have Master Plus access or at least access to define other people's access settings, which basically is getting into this window. Someone has to be able to click this access button and open this window. So that's what this little checkbox here does. In order to get to that button, they have to have the ability to at least view the employee screen. So in general, when you're setting up employees for the first time, set up yourself, an owner or someone, and Master Plus access to give access to everything, and then give yourself a username and a password. That's employees. That's employees on a basic level. Payroll and setting up payroll things. We'd talk with you phone conversation. We'll have some training videos on that. We're not going to go much into really into payroll setup and those laws. I will say this, I guess, you do want to double click each of these items and plug in year to date from your previous system. How much did I pay or withhold from this person prior to using QFloors for payroll? If you use a payroll service, you don't have to do that, of course. If you're using Paychex or ADP or your accountant, just set up the individuals, give them access rights if they need into the software at all. More setups. Leads management. We're going to go to the lead screen. To make changes here, everybody must be logged off the up list. Do you want to log everybody off the up list now? Yes. Well, what's an up list? We'll talk about that in a moment. The lead screen in general, just let me mention, that is an area where you can manage opportunities for sales. I like to think of it not so much as a person or company as it is an opportunity related to a person or company, of course, who's buying, who's looking at this. But this is managing your opportunities for sales, being able to track those. So in the leads management setup window, do I want to activate this uplist or not? Uplist means which salesperson is up next. So if we activate this, what will increment the up? When a customer walks in the door, when a customer calls. Maybe we don't want to count phone calls as saying who's up next. An internet, maybe you have internet website where customers can prompt you for a response there, or some other method. You want to have an uplist for each location. I would probably say yes if you have multiple stores, and then you click OK. When the up list is activated, and I'm going to click OK here, and then under Edit Up Manager. So when I'm a salesperson, I come in and I click Edit and Up Manager, and I can double click and log myself in, or if I'm a manager myself, I can double click and log someone in, and their number, they're first, and Michael's second, Kathy's third, Ryan's fourth. When they come in and clock in for the day, they can log themselves out. And then this quick view window, when I closed it, I clicked the Q button. Now it shows who's first, who's second, who's third. So when Bill Adams logs into QFloors and creates a new lead, someone's up, or he's up, he talks to the customer and creates this lead, his name will fall to the back of the list, and everyone else will move over to the left. Must enter advertising, must enter looking for items. So coming back to the lead screen, that means when I create a new lead, I have to fill in at least one of these advertising options. I'll show you where you can set those up in a moment. And I must fill out this looking for. If I go to some leads here, go to some leads, then what were they looking for? Carpet, tile, different things, any notes that you've made about it. You have to fill out at least something in this window. Must enter advertising, must enter looking for item. And then this goal section here. Do I want to apply goals to different locations or not? And you can type in a number, press enter to assign a sales goal for the month to that location. You could also click on a person and give them, type in a goal just for them. Or you can type in an overall goal for the location and split it evenly among everyone. Miscellaneous setup. Let's go to the, I'm sorry, I need to show you advertising setup under File, then Preferences, Advertisement. You type in press enter or click the add button. Miscellaneous setup. Over to the invoices screen. Under miscellaneous, we have this product overhead percentage. That's the second number over here in your job cost window. And it's not tied to overhead, or it's not referring to overhead like you might think when you're looking at your profit and loss report as fixed expenses as a percentage of sales. This is product overhead. It's really certain expenses as a percentage of material costs on your profit and loss. If you look at your cost of goods sold section on your profit and loss report, your income statement, you look at your materials cost, look down in the general overhead expenses, and you see you'll have warehouse fees or salaries, forklift maintenance, and different things for managing materials. And you add those up, and maybe you just pull out certain portions of certain numbers, but you add up the numbers that are applicable to what it takes to manage your inventory, and you take that total divided by that materials cost of goods sold number that's on your income statement, and that's the rate that you can plug in here. That's generally a good mathematical way to come up with that. It doesn't go anywhere when you're looking at an invoice and you're trying to close up that sale to say it's done. Checking or unchecking it doesn't send it anywhere on your financial reports. It's really just an estimated overhead factor for your invoice. All it really does is act to increase the total costs, which in turn decreases your profit margin. And if we had a salesperson here, that would in turn decrease the commission. If our costs go up and margin goes down, QFloors calculates the commission mainly based on profit margin. So that's product overhead. We also have minimum deposit percentage. If you have something entered here, let's go ahead and type something in. We'll say 50%. And be careful. Some states, I think California is one, there may be others, some states have a limit on what you can ask as a down payment. You type something in here, press enter, click your save button. Now if we make a change to this particular invoice, because there are no payments posted, if we were to say this is actually and then save it, it'll ask for a payment. You need a minimum deposit of, and it's right down to the penny. If we post a payment for $1,306.23 and save this invoice again, it'll pop up this message again. You need 1306.24 or an approved financing contract. Do you want to say this as a proposal? So it's forcing you to either get the payment or save it as a proposal. If you save it as a proposal, then any inventory that you've selected to reserve and hold in use for this job is going to be canceled. It's not going to hold the inventory for a proposal sale. So we'll say, no, this is not a proposal, but we want it saved. So we're in a little loop here. So we need either a payment or a financing contract. So in the payments window, type in a description and what type of payment and add that in. What if we have a financing contract? Then maybe type in little details. 6 months, same as cash, finance. Are we getting funded right away? Then we can put in a dollar amount and assume we're getting that money in the bank in a couple of days. If we're not getting anything for a while, you just leave it at zero. These two options here, specifically finance as a payment type and a zero amount, that will override the requirement for the minimum deposit on this invoice. You have a builder, a contractor, you write up a sale for them, they're not right there to pay you. You're going to collect on that job at the when it's completed, but you need to save it as a sale, not as a proposal. Finance type, zero amount, any sort of description you may want, and then add payment. That overrides the requirement for a minimum payment on this one invoice. Remote client mode, you don't need to select that. There's very, very few customers that would ever select that anymore. That was for some old networking, remote networking reports. This is where QFloors will attempt to save a report. As I showed you, when you hold the shift key and click the print button, by default it will try and save it into whatever path you have here. Whereas QFloors looking at to get your your payroll withholding calculations. And that's just something you download from our website, and that's the path where it goes. Maximum soft reserve hours, that should be hours right there. And it has a 1. I'd say let's set it something different here. We'll put 36 hours. Press enter and save it. What that's referring to is over in your product screen on some inventory, customer comes in and looks at this and says, I'd like to hold that. Can you hold that for me? But I'm not sure that I'm going to buy it. Well, if you write up a proposal invoice, it won't hold the inventory for them. But you can do this adjustment/reserve button down here. So that's a reserve option. And then you can indicate a quantity. We're going to hold the whole thing. In this case, we'll say 25.6025 yards. Oh, I hit enter. And then give it a name. An address and fill all that in. How many total hours am I going to hold this? So as management in the miscellaneous setup, you would define what's the maximum number of hours that I will allow. Salesperson can only reserve up to that amount. They may go less than that. We'll hold it for 12 hours. We're going to hold it for 1. Click OK. Then it shows a line down in the detail, this green detail section of the product. And you can double click and go look at that again, make any changes. Chart of accounts setup. These are your general ledger accounts, your financial accounts. When you first install QFloors, it has a list of accounts in it already, and then you need to add in accounts that should be here for your company, certain loans and assets. You can change some of these, and some of them will already match up. You'll have an accounts receivable in your list of accounts coming from QuickBooks or some other software. QFloors has an accounts receivable account, so you don't need to add in yours. It's already here. My recommendation is export this list to a spreadsheet file. Maybe go and print that, or at least have it up on the screen. Print or export your list of accounts from your previous system and then compare the two, mainly focusing on your previous system list of accounts. Maybe you cross off at which accounts you don't need or which accounts you don't use anymore. And then you're focusing on identifying which accounts that you need from your previous system, which ones are already in QFloors, and you mark those off. Maybe you rename it in here a little bit in QFloors. And then what you're left with is on your previous system list of accounts, you have accounts that are not already in QFloors, and on the QFloors list of accounts you have accounts listed that maybe you don't need. And so you could come in and rename it. If you don't need a computer equipment account in QFloors because it's not on your coming from your previous system. You can come in and just change it, and you can say this is some other whatever type of account you need. Just make your changes. You have to press enter. If I type in some other things up here, it doesn't change the name of the account unless you press enter. And then you can save your changes. You don't have to save after every one. You can click on different ones, make some changes. Make sure you're pressing enter after each change, and then save every once in a while. You can move the columns narrower and wider. The reason I point that out in here is to show you that there is a hidden column over here on the left. If you move the mouse arrow here and click and drag it over to the right, there's a sequence number, or it's really the same thing as this account number. It's shown up here. If you click on here, we see it's number 109, number 101. You don't need to know the sequence or account number. The reason I point it out is this. If we click on any of these headings, it'll sort it alphabetically, or in this case, I want to show you numerically sorted on the sequence number column. Accounts 2 through 100 are system accounts. They are reserved for the software. QFloors is using those in the background as you do certain transactions. Number 1 is you can do anything you want with it. When you first install QFloors, it's called checking account. And I've come into this demo and renamed it Bank of America, and you can put whatever your bank is, or you can make it any other account. It doesn't have to be a checking account. You can make it anything you want. Basically, I'm saying number 1 is open to whatever you want to use it for. 2 through 100, be careful about changing them. I've already changed this one, obviously, because it used to say FICA here. When you first install it, number 32 is labeled FICA. So if I change it back to what we had it set initially and press the enter key, you get a message, you're attempting to modify a system account. Basically, just don't change the meaning of the account. We wouldn't want to change that to rent or telephone or some loan account, because QFloors is going to put things there automatically when you do payroll over in the employee screen. Do you still want to modify it? So it will let you shoot yourself in the foot and change an account in the way you shouldn't have, but you don't want to. So be careful when you see this message. Do you really want to change that? Some of you may have an accountant or bookkeeper that absolutely insists that you use their account numbers. So again, this column here is not an account number as an accountant would consider it. But if you need that, then you can add that to either the front end or the back end of your account name. This is, let's say this is account number 205. Press enter. Do you want to modify that system account? We're not really changing the meaning of it. It's still our Social Security account. So you can do it that way. Chart of accounts. More setups. Labor types. This is a big one. Chart of accounts is kind of a big one to do sometimes, but you can push that off to your bookkeeper. Labor types. This is something that you need to have done before you start creating your sales in the software. No matter how you set them up in this list, when you're out on the invoice selecting from that list, it's alphabetized. And you see what we've done in this demo, we've given them all a prefix so that they get grouped together alphabetically. All of our carpet labor is in one group. Ceramic and wood and vinyl, everything's in a group because we gave it a prefix. When you're on your invoice line, you can't just type in, you can't just type in any sort of labor that you want and have it stick. It doesn't work. You have to select from that list that you have predefined. So set up labor types. So how do we predefine them? QFloors will already have a good handful of them in here when you first install the software. You can click on one and make any changes up here. Maybe I don't want to call it plush. I want to call it standard. However you want to word it. Make sure you press the enter key. Notice that it did not change down in the list until I press enter. Do we sell that labor? Do we price it to our customer by the foot of the yard? You might pay your installer differently by the yard always, but if you are pricing to the customer by the square foot, then you really want to put it in here by the square foot, and your pricing on your work orders to pay your installer is going to be by the square foot also. Retail price, what do I normally charge a customer to do that labor? Cost, what do I normally pay an installer to do that labor? So again, it's going to be in that unit of measurement. I'll come back to these different costs over here in a moment. Save your changes. You can make a bunch of changes and save at the end, or you can save in between each one. I strongly recommend, do this outside of QFloors first. List them out on paper. Maybe you already have a spreadsheet or a document that has all of your labor items listed. Go through it, fine-tune it if you need, but list them out on paper on what are we going to call it. When it prints out on an invoice, how do I want it to read on that customer's invoice? It will also print on your work order for your installer in the same way, whatever you've labeled it here. What unit of measurement do we sell it in? What do we normally charge a customer for us to do that labor? And what's our normal cost payout to an installer? Set up those 4 columns on a sheet of paper or in a spreadsheet. Unfortunately, you're not able to import to this area, but just get it set up somewhere else. And then ignore what is in this table and just change it to match your list. You'll click on the first one and you'll make your changes and press enter. Each box, go to the next one, make your changes in each box, pressing enter, and go to the next one, and just make this match your list. It's a lot easier that way. Number 14 is one that's reserved for the software. It kind of came about after the fact, after we first created it. That's why it's not number 1 or number 0 up at the top. But basically, you can't change it. It'll warn you if you try to. When you don't select any labor on a line, and then you come back to that invoice later, QFloors will have put that one on that line. There's no labor. Or you can select it yourself on a line. When you first install the program, there's about 0 through 74, so there's 75 items. Fill those up. Just keep clicking on the next blank one and fill it up. And then once you have those filled up, you can click New and keep adding more, number 75, 76, all the way up to 400 labor items. For those of you that are participating in this webinar, and you're thinking, well, those are some good ideas, I can change it, I can do it differently, be careful about going back and changing what you already have. If we were to change any one of these, let's say we were to change laminate to hardwood tear out. Every previous sale in your software that used to say laminate on the labor line would then say hardwood tear out. You're changing past things. Changing a retail price or a cost in this setup window does not go backwards and affect any previous invoice, but changing the name does. Cost levels 0 through 4. Level 0, level 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe 1 or 2 installers, this is what I pay them. Here's another installer, and this is what I pay him or her. More installers. So it's different cost levels for different individual labor items. If you set those up, then what you can do over in your employee subscreen for an installer, you can assign which cost level applies to them. Then when you're on an invoice line and you select that installer's name, it will automatically switch to their cost for that labor. So that's labor types. Just want to reiterate, set them up, list them out on paper or spreadsheet first, give them a prefix so that they're grouped together alphabetically as your different types of labor, and then come in here and just change, oops, wrong one, sorry, then come into this window and just change what's there to match your list. Sales commissions. This variable rate table in the bottom part of the window is what we recommend using. It's a great way to pay out a sales commission, in our opinion. There's other ways, and that may be better for your situation. But how this works is you determine your your tiers or your levels. If the profit margin, and it's this upper one here. Let's look at a different invoice that I didn't play with and make a mess of the commission. So this profit margin here is what the software looks at to fit it into one of these levels. This is the pre-commission margin. It's the one that it uses to calculate the commission. And then the second margin down here is the company's profit margin after including the commission as one of the costs. So salesperson's margin, company's margin after paying commission. So this one's 56.41%, so it falls in way up here. So then we're paying out 25% of the profit dollars to the salesperson. So you set up your levels. If the profit margin, so if this number here, 56.41, if it's between, let's say, let's do it this way. If it's between 0 and 15%, so notice I press enter there and it changes down below. So basically between 0 and 15% pay 0 commission, or 1% or 2%, some amount. And then if it goes to, I'm going to press enter and watch this number here. My mouse is, then, so if it's between 15 and 20%, pay out some other percentage of the profit dollars. So you set up your levels and then you set up your payouts over here. You could also use a flat rate based on the subtotal. So basically take the subtotal here, $2,020, times some flat rate and pay the salesperson. Sometimes that's not really a good idea. What if the salesperson gave it away, sold it at a 5% margin, and you're paying a healthy commission anyway? Maybe not a healthy commission, but you're paying them anyway for giving it away. But it's there. We have some people that want to use it. There may be advantage to that. Another one here, materials only. If you have that selected, then when it's looking at the invoice, it's not really using the full 56.41% profit margin as this invoice shows here. It's just taking the $1,695 material amount minus the cost, and the 1,000 or 109 minus the cost. Is taking those and adding them up and coming up with a margin that fits into these levels. It's excluding the labor. You can set up multiple tables, and here I've got some in there, and you can click one and see different setups for it. If you want to set up a new table, you click the new button here. You want to come immediately and give it a new name. This is commission table 4, however you want to label it. I don't know that I would name it in conjunction with an employee name in case that employee moves on to other things. But you could rename it and then save it and then set it up however you want it set up. Then in the employee screen, you can select which commission table should the software use in calculating their commission. Vendor accounts. Let's come to the bill screen. So when you're creating a new bill, you have this list of vendors. Product screen, which vendor are we purchasing this from? So different places that this will get used. You set this up pretty simply. Click the Add button and fill in the blanks and click OK. Now vendor name, let's look at Mohawk. That's a good example for difference between vendor and payee. Their official company name, Mohawk Industries Inc., but internally I just want to see it as Mohawk. But when I print a check to them, it's got to be Mohawk Factoring. Now, if the vendor name and payee name are the same, you don't have to fill in the payee if you don't want to. Save yourself the typing and just type in a vendor name and skip that. And QFloors will use the vendor name on the checks when it prints a check if this is blank. Address and so forth. In version 6.1 of QFloors, we finally have this second street line activated and working. And then your terms. QFloors does manage the dual set of terms that you'll see with many vendors. 5% in 20 days, 3% in 30 days, net 40, or whatever your terms would be with your vendor. Maybe just set it at net 30 and leave these blank or zeros. Or if it's due on receipt, then you just leave this at 0 as well. Down below this line here, this bottom third of the window is for B2B settings. So when you contact your vendor and request that they set up a B2B account that's associated with your normal account with them, about a week later you'll get an email back from them that has your account settings. And you'll put those settings into this area down here and click the Activate B2B option, and then you can download files from them. By the way, B2B is a very handy, very beneficial feature. It really gives you creates some efficiencies for you. You can download your pricing. You can place your orders directly to the vendors. They don't even have to be open. It can be middle of the night. You can place an order and you can download your bills from them. Really a lot of time-saving functions there. Okay, customer accounts. These are your repeat customers. These would be builders, contractors, school district. It could be an individual, just anyone that's coming back to you on a regular basis. Maybe it's Mr. Jones, and he's down the street, and he comes in every year to have his flooring redone. That's regular enough for me. I would put him in. But just because someone has come back in the past doesn't necessarily mean you put him in here. So you decide. But it's intended to be the regularly repeating customers, especially those contractors and so forth. Very simple to add them in. Click the Add button, fill in the blanks. Last name or company name. Skip the first name if it's a company name, probably. Address and everything. The phone number obviously is required. After you create this, let's look at this other one here. Here's the phone number. And notice the account number that QFloors created for this is really just a modification of the phone number. Dropped off the first digit, the next one's 0, so it dropped it off also. Now, you don't have to tell your customer, here's your account number with us. But the software is using that in the background for grouping transactions together. Credit limit, again, don't have to use that if you plug something in there, and then you create enough sales in the invoices screen that will put their total sales over that limit. You'll get a pop-up message alerting you of that. How many days due before we start looking at adding interest. So when you print statements from this window here, from this setup window, QFloors will look at that net due, and if it's past that, if today is past the 30 days or 40 days or whatever you've got there from the day the invoice was completed, then it'll ask if you wanted to add that interest rate. That's a monthly rate, not an annual rate. Retail price formulas. We're going to look at that after we look at product catalog. The price formulas draw on information from the catalog, so we need to understand that first. This is getting into inventory now, and there's two areas of the software that deal with managing your inventory. One is this product screen, and everything in here are actual physical goods. Everything in here is real materials that we either need to order or we have ordered and they're already here, I'm sorry, we have ordered but they're not here, or we've received them. This product catalog is your price list. When you do a B2B download of price list, this is where the data goes. Or you can come in here and put things in manually yourself. Or you can import from a spreadsheet and put it in here. And there is an instruction document on our website for how to set up your spreadsheet to import that data. I'm going to start off on the right here with this list of product types. Just like the labor types, if you come back and change these after you've already used them throughout your catalog, you're changing everything from what it used to be as far as the type label on it. The types that are in your QFloors when you first install it are what the B2B standard, that B2B technology requires. And the B2B technology is really only looking at the first few characters. Now the B2B committee has added new ones, some sort of stone here, vinyl, different things that are actually 6 characters, but in general B2B looks at the first 3. That's why we've got BAS here for base, cove base, vinyl base, wall base, whatever you want to call it, but B2B needed to start with the first 3 letters, BAS, CAR, VIN for vinyl, things like that. You can add more types in here. Maybe you sell furniture and appliances and things, so you can add those in. Just click on the next blank one and type it in, press enter, and save your changes. Just don't add any new type that uses the same starting characters as what the B2B standard is using. Basically, don't use the same 3 starting letters as what's already in the list up above. Now I've got furniture in there twice. I saw it. You get the picture. So set up your types first. Setting up or adding things into the catalog. In the new mode here, you would click in the little box above the list, and when you're first starting off, it's a blank area, of course. And then we'll have some new vendor. We'll call it J.J. Haynes. Is a local, or sorry, large distributor. Press the enter key, and then click new manufacturer. Currently, we don't display the rest of this anywhere else in the software. You can fill it out, and we will be using that down the road. A single style name has multiple style numbers. J.J. Haynes is one of the vendors where this needs to be checked. What it means is when you do a B2B download from them, you're going to get the same style name over and over and over, spelled exactly the same way, each one with a different style number, when really it's just one style, and each of those style numbers is really the color number. Wrapped molding is one that comes in mind. You'll get 20 of those in a row in their file, when really all you need is one style called wrapped molding and a handful of colors assigned to it. How do you know which one? We will be updating our website to post which ones require that. Right now it's not on our B2B page, but we'll be posting that there very soon. Then you can add style names. Basically the same way. You type the box at the top here. And if this is some carpet, I'm going to follow the B2B import, and it will add the width onto the end of the name. Press enter, click the new style button, then you fill in your blanks. Is there a style number associated with this? Retail price, we say normally you leave that at 0. If you type a price in here, then when you're selling this on an invoice line, this price will come up on the invoice line instead of the formula price. That we'll look at formulas in a minute. But this price here will override the use of the formula. Now you could go ahead and select a formula or type in your own price either way, but this one will come up by default if you have something other than 0 here. Why would you use this? I'd say if you stock a particular style or color and you want to force it to have a particular price instead of the formulas giving you a price, then you type something in here yourself. Then your costs. If I buy a roll of this, how much per square foot or yard? Price unit, square foot or yard, lineal foot or each. And then your width. Now if it's lineal foot or each, I would change the width to 1. square foot or square yard, roll goods, 12 foot wide, 15, 13.2, and so forth. So you type it in. If it was something like 13 underscore 2, there's your 2 inches. Some software programs do a decimal for your inches. QFloors does not do that. It would be an underscore. Now, if this were some ceramic or some hardwood or laminate, then your width, instead you'll enter here your quantity per carton. How many square feet per box for this tile? 21.67. Okay, that's really important. It's very important when you create your inventory. And here we're looking at this product, and down here is width and length. Width would be 21.67. Length would be your number of cartons that you're ordering or that you have in stock right now. So it's very, very helpful down the road. If whenever you create a style, make sure you give it the right cost for one. That's of course important. Make sure you give it the width or square feet per carton. That's a huge benefit to you later on as you're using the software day to day. Freight. This would be an estimated amount. Here we're creating a list of styles and colors for a price list. We may not ever buy this style or this color, but there's a box for freight. So it's an estimate. You're not going to know the freight till after you get the bill, if you ever buy it at all. So we're just estimating. And it's per unit here. If you get a charge of $50, $75 drop feed, and you put $50 here, QFloors is assuming it's per square foot or per yard. So you want to break that down to an estimated amount per square foot or yard. Backing, when you do a B2B download, it populates that for you, something like A or AB for action back, things like that. It's blank for hard surface products. You can put something there or not if you're putting it in manually. And then your type here, you're just selecting from the list of types that you've already set up over on the right. What type of material is it? You can just type it in or use the mouse and select it. Warranty, you can put anything you want there. Mohawk was the only one that I'm aware of that ever did anything with that, and it was a separate download outside of the B2B download, and as far as I know, they don't do it anymore. You can use that or not. These fields up here at the top right are for promotional pricing. What's the start date and end date, and then the promotional roll cost, or promotional, I should say, cut. And so if today were between those dates, then QFloors would use these costs if you were to create a new order of that material, or if you were to select it on an invoice line and see what's the cost or retail price. Once that end date passes, then QFloors reverts back to the defaults. And then here, roll, cut, or cut, roll or cut default. Which cost do I normally use? Do I normally buy rolls or do I normally buy cuts? Then adding colors is really the same way. Type it in, press enter, new color, and you'll see that it copied things over from the style. We'll just add in a few blanks. SKU number is something that will come from your B2B vendors when you download pricing from them. You can give it something yourself if you'd like. You don't have to. If you are going to use the barcode features in QFloors, then you do need to give it an SKU number. The showroom tags that QFloors prints, in order to have a barcode on the showroom tags, it's creating that barcode based on the SKU number. The SKU numbers that the vendors create and that you download from B2B is really just a combination of the style number, color number, width, and backing. It can be anything you want if you're going to create your own SKU numbers, just so long as they're unique. Unique to that style-color combination. Down here, reorder minimum, reorder quantity. QFloors will check your stock. And when your stock gets below this reorder minimum, say 200 square feet or something, then prompt me to reorder some amount. I'm going to not use that for now. And that's how you add things into the catalog. If you want to add more colors right away, type another one into the little box at the top, new color, fill in any blanks, click OK. So that's your product catalog. Let's look at formulas now. So we have a few formulas already created in here. If we click on one of these, we'll see we gave it a name. What profit margin do I want as a result of the price that this calculates? I want a 40% profit margin when it comes up with a price. Let's create a new one here. We'll call this wood. This is my wood formula, and I want a 48% profit margin. Add to cost. QFloors is going to go to the product catalog and draw the material cost from the catalog. It will also pull the freight cost in. It's another reason why you want to put that freight cost in your catalog, so that your retail price formulas come up with a price that's high enough that's including an estimated freight cost. If you have use tax as as an option in your locations and tax setup, then you probably want to include that tax cost in your pricing, in your cost, to come up with the price. And then add this in as well. So how it would work would be this: take the material cost, and if there's a use tax, apply tax to it. Then add in the freight, and whatever I've got here for add to cost is some throw-in cost. Mark it all up to give me a price that results in a 48% profit margin. Add to retail would be add in a little frosting on top. After it comes up with the price mathematically, just throw in an additional flat amount on top of it. And that's how the formulas work mathematically. Active, that means, do I want this formula to show up and be used in the rest of the program or not? Maybe it's just a temporary price formula that I've got set up for a sale or something like that. Type, here is where we would select what type of material should this formula apply itself to. So I'm going to click Save, and it'll warn me that we need to restart QFloors for this. So we're going to go ahead and do that real quick, and I want to show you how the formulas work. That's the wrong one. So if we're creating a sale and I sell something, let's find something that's obviously carpet. Here's some. And I got a 0 price. And it comes in with a price. This one actually came in from the catalog. I know that. I know that this style is something that's in our little demo program to start with. This price is in the catalog, therefore it overrode the formula. If I did not have a price in the catalog, it would have automatically used this carpet formula. Because I'm going to double click right here on this style, and it shows me there's the details of it, and it knows in the catalog that we've defined it, or when we did a B2B download, it defined it as being carpet type. And it has there's our cut cost, roll cost, retail price coming from the catalog that we typed into the catalog manually, freight cost. So because the software knows that that's carpet, if I didn't already have a retail price in the catalog, it would have automatically used that carpet formula because it's a carpet material. Now we can switch it from there. We can say, well, I actually want to use my wood formula. You can do that, or you can type in your own price. this is going to be a brother-in-law or something, so we've got to really charge enough to cover all the pain he's going to cause us, right? And you can type in whatever pricing you want. Let me tell you another way to set up and use formulas, an alternative way. Rather than associating each formula with a particular type, you can set up formulas without a type. And you don't have to give it a name that includes a type. You can just say, this is my 40% formula. And then another one, this is my 38% formula. Start high and work low. The reason you want your high ones listed first is because the software will use the first formula in the list first. You can set up formulas and use types. Maybe you can set up 3 different carpet formulas, carpet 1, carpet 2, carpet 3, each one with carpet type selected. The software, when you sell some carpet on an invoice line, it will use the first carpet formula that it finds going down the list. It'll use that one automatically on your invoice. And then you could manually select a different formula after that. But this is an alternative way to use your formulas. Don't select a type and just make it more generic type of formula names. Okay, we're now just almost to the hour-and-a-half mark. So we're technically done. We covered all the setups, covered them kind of quickly, I know. But if you have some questions now, if you want to go ahead and type a question, we can go ahead and answer those. We're going to stop the recording and just type in questions and answers. I'm sorry we couldn't do the audio questions today. I don't know what happened with that. I had it testing and working earlier. We'll make sure that's we'll have the audio figured out for next time. I sincerely apologize for that. This webinar, like the previous one that we did that talked about end of period procedures, this webinar will be posted on our website. Once you log in to QFloors.com, click the link on the right for training videos, and you'll find various videos in there. Today's webinar should be posted on the website later today. Might be tomorrow, but hopefully later today. So we're going to go ahead and open it for questions. We appreciate you participating today. Remember to sign up, go register for session 2 and session 3 if you plan on participating in those. Those will be a week from today and then 2 weeks from today, respectively. Thank you.